Welcome to Darold Miller Live here on the ZNS radio and the television networks. And we are streaming all over the world at www.znsbahamas.com. As we do every morning, we begin this show with a prayer. Let us pray. Our God and our Father, we come humbly before you this morning to thank you for waking us up, for giving us health and strength, life and liberty. We thank you for the rain and for the sunshine and for these beautiful islands with which you have blessed us, these islands that have become the envy of the world. We pray that you would further incline our ears so that we can better understand your word and become more effective stewards of what you have given us. We pray for vision, wisdom, knowledge, and understanding so that we can deal with the many, many challenges that confront us. And today, as we conduct this show, guide our thoughts, direct our speech, and give us wise tongues for our discussion. Teach us, O God, how to live together as one in peace, in harmony, and in love. And we are comforted by your word that no weapons formed against us shall prosper. Thank you. In Jesus' name, amen. Our very special guest today on Darold Miller Live is the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Immigration, the PLP's Member of Parliament for Fox Hill, the Honourable Fred Mitchell. Minister, welcome back to Darold Miller Live.
Good morning. Thank you very much. A pleasure to be here.
We want to begin with immigration, particularly concerning persons who were born in the Bahamas and are sometimes put in a category called stateless. Many are of Haitian descent, and many more now are of Jamaican descent. Let us look at those persons of Jamaican descent. And I say that because there seems to be more and more Jamaicans immigrating to the Bahamas. And there are some who are stateless. And I hope I'm putting that correctly.
I think so. We think so. I mean, before we would have argued that they were not stateless, but some information which has come up recently which suggests that that might in fact be the case. And so I was saying that the rules have somewhat been changed to try and meet that particular position, because our international obligations are that you can't have stateless people in your jurisdiction. So that is being looked at. This is, citizenship is a very complicated thing for the Bahamas, and the framers of the Bahamian Constitution defined it so particularly and so carefully that you almost have to study it as a separate kind of chapter of the Constitution in order to understand it. But put quite simply, if you were born here before 1973, regardless of who your parents were or are, you are a Bahamian citizen as of the 10th of July, 1973. But after the 10th of July, 1973, it depends on your parents and what their nationality is or was. And that is where the complication begins. So what you have is a situation where if your parents were not Bahamian, then all you have is a qualified right to apply at your 18th birthday and before your 19th birthday in order to get citizenship of the Bahamas if you wish to remain here in the country.
Upon
your 18th birthday
and before
the 19th birthday.
So you have 1 year.
1 year to apply. If you were born to non-Bahamian parents, to apply for citizenship.
Now, those who are of Haitian descent born in the Bahamas to, and I'm talking now about parents who moved here illegally. So the person of Haitian descent, born in the Bahamas to non-Bahamian parents who had moved here illegally, in this case Haitian parents, they have this qualified right to apply upon 18.
Well, the Constitution speaks to the parents who are non-national. It doesn't speak to their immigration status. So anyone who's in this country, who is born in this country to non-Bahamian parents, have a qualified right at 18 to apply for citizenship and be granted citizenship if they apply before their 19th birthday.
You say and be granted. That's not automatic.
No, I said, that's why I started by saying it's a qualified right, yeah, which means that it's an entitlement to apply.
But the Haitian, the person of Haitian descent in that category is not stateless.
No, my understanding of the Haitian Constitution is that wherever you are born, if your parents are Haitian, you are Haitian at birth. So every Haitian who's born, just like every American who's born to American parents, can go to the Haitian embassy here tomorrow and get a Haitian passport.
Okay. But not so for the person of Jamaican descent.
Not so for Jamaicans is my understanding of their law. The Jamaican Constitution says that you actually have to apply for citizenship of Jamaica. So what that means is that someone who has Jamaican parents born in this country, if they do not do that, the Bahamian Constitution says you're not Bahamian. The Jamaican Constitution says you're not Jamaican, so that leaves you stateless.
How many people are in that category?
Don't know the numbers, but I think we have maybe about a dozen to 15 cases now of people who are unable to move because renunciation of Jamaican citizenship, my advice is, requires $1,500 US. Most of the people who are in that category are from lower socioeconomic groups and simply can't afford it. So they have in their hand a grant of citizenship from the Bahamas, but can't do anything about it because they can't afford to do it. And what was being required of us was that they had to apply for Jamaican citizenship and then immediately renounce it. Now, so we looked at the regulations, and people in this category, there's now a new affidavit which they have to swear to, and that affidavit is amended pursuant to the existing regulations, which would allow persons who do not have the citizenship of any country to be able to swear allegiance to the Bahamas.
So you have made some amendment to the regulations?
To the affidavit, because if you look at the regulations, it says that the minister may adapt the affidavit of renunciation to meet particular cases, and we've just had the sign-off of the Attorney General's office on the affidavit to deal with this particular case.
So this is the minister, him or herself, doing this?
That's right.
Nothing to do with Parliament or Cabinet?
Well, that's the interesting thing about the way these things are. It says the minister, but in fact it's the Cabinet, yeah. The minister.
But not Parliament?
No, it does not.
So nothing had to be changed in our laws?
No, because this is done pursuant to the regulations. You know, the way the statutes are is you have a law, and then the law gives the minister the power to make regulations. So the regulations were made, and in the regulations themselves, the regulation says if there's an affidavit which does not meet a particular case, the minister can adapt the affidavit. So all we had to do in this particular case was to adapt the affidavit and get the sign-off of the Attorney General's office, which they've done.
So this makes the Jamaican situation clearer?
Clearer, I think, yeah.
But the Haitian situation is not clearer.
Well, the issue of the Haitian citizenship is simply, not simply, but it is a matter of numbers and trying to get the processing done. And of course, there's the social discrimination which comes, and the fact that the Bahamian population is agitated about illegal migration. And I think you heard a bit of this come up again when you had Haitian Flag Day here. I think that was last weekend.
That was Saturday.
Just this coming, the last weekend.
Yeah.
So, that it comes up from time to time.
Let me ask you about that. Is it acceptable for the Haitian flag to be flown ad nauseum throughout the streets, on cars? What's your view on that?
Well, I mean, you're using all these emotive
because all you
words,
see is
man.
red and blue.
Yeah,
No.
you know, put it this way: the Bahamian flag can also fly in Haiti. So you know, it's a
In cars, up and down.
I'm sure. Yes, yeah, can. There's no issue with that. I mean,
That's democracy.
Not from a legal point of view, but obviously there's a social pushback in the country because there's a big discussion about it. But you know, they're part of the fabric of the Bahamas. So I don't know, unless you want to take some draconian measures to stop it. But I think that would probably cause a backlash. So the question is really public education. We're all very proud of the Bahamas, and we can withstand, you know, the cultural exchanges. American flags are flying everywhere in the country as well. So
there are those who, though, are a little paranoid that at some point the people of Haitian descent would overtake the people of the Bahamas.
that's a fair. I've heard it expressed, but that's for a wider discussion. That's not really something that I could pronounce on one way or on the other. What I can say as an immigration minister is we're doing our best to stop illegal migration. The country needs to have a wider discussion on the question of citizenship and on the whole question of integration and how the nation is going to progress and who's going to have the right to live here. That's a real wide discussion.
The DNA is taking you to task on the shanty towns where many illegal immigrants live. They say you're doing nothing to rid the country of these illegal shanty towns with the illegal immigrants.
Well, that's simply not true. First of all, the responsibility for the question of the actual structures, those responsibilities reside in the Ministry of Environment and the Ministry of Works. And the Ministry of Environment, which has the lead on this, has been quite aggressive in trying to get this matter resolved. Our remit in immigration is to make sure that people who are in the country who are not lawfully entitled to be here are not here. To the extent that our resources permit, I think we're doing an excellent job.
But you don't go into the shanty towns and do roundups the way Granville McCartney did.
Well, again, the nomenclature roundups is not in my vocabulary. I've said that the expression that we use is interdiction. We also do checks from time to time, and it is not true to say that immigration enforcement officers do not on a daily basis visit those areas where people are suspected of being unlawfully residing in the Bahamas.
So where are you going today? You say you do it on a daily basis?
On a daily basis. I would have to ask the enforcement officers. I mean, I can't say.
Where did you go last week?
Well, you know, I can't say. I mean, but it's done on a daily basis, believe me. And every day they're out there working. But what I've said a couple of times on this issue is that the enforcement section of immigration consists of 12 officers. Okay, so that's the enforcement section. The entire force.
Do you need more?
Oh, absolutely. The entire force, immigration force, is 231 officers. So you do the numbers, you do the math. There's equipment. There are equipment shortages. Computers, vehicles, so on and so forth. Every operation has to be planned in conjunction with the defense force and with the police force to supplement the numbers. Several times over the last year, we've had to stop the interdictions or the road checks because the detention center was simply full because of the incursions by sea. So you have these issues. And that's going to continue in the short term, I believe.
There is a question that says, I am a Bahamian married to a Jamaican. She was here from she was 9 years old. We were married for some 16 years come December. She has residency. How can I get citizenship for her?
Well, she needs to apply for citizenship. If she has, well, She's the wife of a Bahamian. So
She's the wife of a Bahamian.
So as the wife of a Bahamian, she has a constitutional entitlement upon marriage to apply for citizenship.
So you're saying she could have gotten her citizenship a long time ago?
Sure, if that's what she wanted. I think by policy, the previous cabinets have tended, and I think the policy still stands, to ensure that the marriage has subsisted for at least 5 years before they actually grant the citizenship. That's the practice. But the Constitution gives you the entitlement as at the marriage.
This leads us to marriages of convenience.
Right.
It has come to my attention that Bahamian women are receiving a few $1,000s a pop to get married to foreign men.
There are lots of reports about that. I would say if you have specific instances, let us know. Certainly when you apply for a spousal permit, when you apply for citizenship, when you apply for permanent residence, there's a check which is done by immigration to see whether the marriage actually subsists and that it's a real marriage. What I would say in the case of men, however, is men don't have the entitlement to citizenship upon marriage. The best they can get is permanent residence under the present structure, which of course leads to the question you asked in the pre-show, which is the question of women thinking that their spouses are treated differently than men and than the spouses of men. And that is in fact the case, because that's the way the law is now structured. Of course, you know that the Constitutional Commission made certain recommendations with regard to that, and this will have to be solved by a referendum at some point.
Which is not coming now.
I don't know when it's scheduled for. I think they're talking about something in the fall. You know, my own view on this is we can amend the statute law to deal with it, but I think most women's groups want it actually entrenched in the Constitution.
When you say amend the statute law?
Well, there's a provision in the Constitution which says that those things which are not listed in the Constitution as giving you a right or entitlement to citizenship, Parliament may by law prescribe other methods for getting the citizenship. So it's possible, in my view, under the statute law, using that provision in the Constitution to come up with measures to deal with this. But the feeling is, the better view is to have the provisions entrenched in the Constitution.
Do you go to the shanty towns?
I've seen them on various campaigns, yes.
So you haven't been to Abaco? To Pigeon P into the mud
I know
lately.
Abaco very well, yeah.
But have you been in there lately?
I have been.
When there was the fire, did you go?
No, I didn't go since the fire. But, you know, I know Marsh Harbor, I know Sandbank, I know those, you know, I know this country like the back of my hand,
yeah.
So there's no issue there.
But the question is, do you go in them?
Yes, I've been in them. And
been Joe Farrington?
And I know the conditions, yeah, I do. I mean, because the last experience I had, of course, was during Ryan's campaign in the by-election where, you know, people were complaining about these conditions. The interesting thing about all these, you know, about some of these is that, of course, they have Bahamian landlords. And that's, you know, it's not government land they're squatting on. It's actually private land, and they're paying rent to be on these places.
So, prosecute.
Easier said than done. Easier said than done. And there's a lot of work to be done, I agree. And, you know, as I said, the Minister of Environment is tackling it as best he can.
There were some fires in North Andros, near the farming area, the Bark community. And after the fires, there in plain view were two previously unknown shanty towns of primarily Haitian immigrants. Is that something the Department of Immigration should be paying attention to?
There's no question. But, you know, again, the issue is always resources. See, these communities exist in the Bahamas not because of themselves. They're not. They don't spring up because of themselves. They spring up because they're tolerated by the wider Bahamian community.
Meaning, people are working.
Working for
the illegal immigrants.
That's right.
Are working.
And working for the communities. And what you will find is.
But they are working without work permits.
I don't know that that's the case, though.
But they're illegal.
Well, I don't know. I don't know.
But I'm telling you, some are illegal.
That may be the case, but I know people in this country speak very loosely about this question of who's here legally and illegally. See, I won't say that. I'm saying that, yes, you can suspect that they are, but what happens very often is that you go and do an interdiction and you find they, in fact, do have work permits. And then the other issue, of course, is that you go and do an interdiction, and 5 minutes after everyone's in the lockup, you start getting a call from this prominent
citizen, let my person go.
This next prominent citizen, so on and so forth. So, it's damned if you do.
But that doesn't scare you.
Well, no, I'm not scared about anything. I'm just saying what the practicalities are. And, I'm at the point in my public life where, in my view, no matter how you bark, shout, and scream, the facts and the practicalities are what they are. The resources you have to work with, you work with, and you do the best you can. Now, opposition parties have the role of being histrionic and to say,
What's that word?
Histrionic.
Histrionic.
Yeah. This doesn't work, that doesn't work, high drama and all the rest of it. But what I do know is that when they were there, and the particular fellow you called, he didn't produce any better results.
Oh, yes, he did.
No, he did. He had good publicity, but no better results.
Okay.
He was a good PR man, and still is.
Okay.
I suppose. Yeah.
We are having a discussion with the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Immigration, the PLP's Member of Parliament for Fox Hill, the Honourable Fred Mitchell. We have a few more immigration questions, and then we're going to get to the broader side of your ministry, Foreign Affairs. Yeah. You've been traveling. You've been going to the new emerging superpowers of the world.
Right.
I want to know if you are bringing back home any money, any investment. This is Darold Miller Live. We'll be back right after these messages. Welcome back to Darold Miller Live here on the ZNS radio and the television networks. Our very special guest is the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Immigration, the Honourable Fred Mitchell. We have a question coming in, Minister, that asks, firstly, we are here worrying about the Haitians and Jamaicans, but it's the Chinese we should be worried about. They're the ones we should be concerned about, taking over the Bahamas. Soon, it'll look like living in China and not the Bahamas. Your comment on that?
Again, I try to keep out of the emotive stuff or the emotional stuff about this, right? Citizens are entitled, when they look at their country, to have their country look like how they want it to look. So I understand people's responses to it. So all I can say is the immigration minister, though, is anybody who is not here lawfully, immigration is going to try and get them out or to prevent them from coming in. And that it doesn't matter what their nationality is, what their ethnicity is, the law is applied across the board. We only happen to be talking about Haitians and Jamaicans because that's a significant category of people who are applying for status. I agree that increasingly, of course, the Chinese are also applying for status because of the thousands who came in for this project out at Cable Beach. But the same law applies whether they're Chinese, Jamaican, or Haitian. It's the same law, or American.
Are we seeing more illegal immigrants from China?
What we are seeing is a pattern of smuggling, or attempted smuggling, which is taking place this way. And I'm not sure whether the Chinese themselves are a major part of it, but there have been some cases of either entry by visa through Cuba, and of course that was in the days when visas were required for Chinese to come here as tourists, or what is happening is people are coming up from South America, from Brazil. Indians are also coming in from Brazil through Copa Airlines to the Bahamas, landing here as tourists. They stay at wherever it is for the 2 weeks that they're landed, and then they fly up to Freeport and disappear. And we have, in the past year, interdicted a number of people in these houses where people are taking preparatory steps to be smuggled into the United States. And in all those cases, we've been successful in the prosecutions and deport them back to their home countries.
But I'm concerned with the ones who want to stay here.
Stay where, sorry?
In the Bahamas.
Well, the pattern,
not to Florida.
No, the pattern is not that they want to stay here. The pattern is...
Chinese don't want to stay here?
No, the pattern is to go to the United States. That's the pattern.
What about the Cuban?
Same thing. Pattern is to go to the United States. And
Minister, I'm seeing increasingly more and more.
What IOM said in their 2006 study to do the Haitian community, and I think this applies, is that on any given day, I think they said there's somewhere between 30,000 and 75,000 Haitians in the country.
Repeat that.
On any given day, I don't want you to hold you to these exact figures, but it's somewhere between 30,000 and 75,000 Haitians in the Bahamas on any given day.
Now, these are, just break down their status.
No, let me complete the thought. In one state or other on their way to the United States. So even if they're staying here for a year, working 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, ultimately IOM says their destination is the U.S. So some
Haitians.
Yes, right. The study was done on the Haitian community. So the suggestion is that if you extrapolate that across the immigrant community, that is a pattern of people here. They may find a good job and they hold on to that job for a year, 2 years, but ultimately their destination is the United States. That's the big draw.
Okay. The question on the Haitian side is, can persons born in the Bahamas to Haitian parents apply for a Bahamian passport and get dual citizenship?
No, not
or dual travel
no
status?
No. What I was explaining is this. An American citizen, let's take an American citizen who's born here. One of the first things they do after they come from the hospital is go down to the U.S. Embassy and get a passport for their child, because they're entitled to be U.S.
U.S. passport.
A U.S. passport, yeah.
The same happens to when a child is born in the United States.
Right.
To whomever, they go
and get a passport.
To INS, I guess, and get an American passport for that child.
Right, but to use the apt case, it would be if a Bahamian were born in the United States, they can get a U.S. passport, but they can also get a Bahamian passport at birth. So a Haitian who's born, a person who is born to Haitian parents here can, at birth, go to the Haitian embassy and get a Haitian passport. The pattern has not been to do that. The pattern has been to live here without a Haitian passport, getting what they call a certificate of identity, which we've stopped issuing because there's no basis to issue them. The Attorney General's office says there's no basis to be issuing them, so we stopped issuing those. Because certificates of identity are really for Bahamian citizens. But somewhere along the way, this certificate of identity was used as a mechanism for people who did not have passports, born in these circumstances, to show that they somehow belong to the Bahamas. And so what we're saying now is that really that all persons should conform to the general norm, which is you get the passport of the citizenship of the, passport for the country to which you belong. Now, that does not prejudice your right on your 18th birthday to apply for Bahamian citizenship if you've lived here all your life. That does not prevent that from happening. But you also ought to know that once you are granted citizenship under those provisions, you have to renounce your Haitian citizenship. You can't have dual nationality.
You can have dual nationality, though, Bahamian and American.
Yes, but that's according to the laws of the United States. And in the case of the Bahamas, where someone acquires that status involuntarily, then the Governor General does not, because the Governor General has under the Constitution the power to revoke your citizenship So, but it's not normally exercised.
So you're saying under the laws of Haiti,
Right.
you can't have dual citizenship?
No, laws of Haiti, you can have dual citizenship.
I'm lost now.
I'm sorry.
You can be a Bahamian and an American,
Right.
but you can't be a Haitian and a Bahamian. That's what you're saying.
It depends. It depends. What I'm saying is this. Someone who applies at their 18th birthday, before their 19th birthday, under the provisions of the Constitution of the Bahamas, under the present law of the Bahamas, has to renounce his Haitian citizenship, or his previous citizenship, whatever citizenship that is, the one he had at birth. If he acquires Bahamian citizenship,
That way.
he has to, that's right, he has to renounce. Right?
Okay.
For example, wives don't have to renounce. So if you are Haitian and you marry a Bahamian, and you get Bahamian citizenship, which you're entitled to under the law, you don't have to renounce your Haitian citizenship.
If you're a Haitian woman,
That's right. Haitian woman, that's right. Married to a Bahamian man, and you get citizenship of the Bahamas by
Marriage.
applying, by virtue of the marriage, you do not have to renounce your Haitian citizenship. You can be a dual national.
of course, if you're thinking about entering politics, you got to renounce.
Yes, because of some rulings that have been done by the courts. Yeah.
Which kind of takes us back to Sinclair Ouden.
Now, Mr. Auden's case was a different case. He was not a citizen at all. He was born in the Turks and Caicos, and by an error, he was allowed to nominate. And it was later discovered that he was not a citizen because he had been brought here as a baby and not, as he thought, born here. So that meant his seat had to be vacated. He was then granted citizenship of the Bahamas. The election was held over again, and he was re-elected to Parliament.
Let's talk about the granting of Bahamian citizenship then before we move to foreign affairs. Cabinet makes that decision.
The cabinet makes a decision. Now, that's you'd asked about this. If you look at the Nationality Act, the Bahamas Nationality Act, it says everywhere the minister, the minister, the minister. But in fact, cabinet makes the decision. And I was saying to my colleagues, because if you look at the Immigration Act, permanent residence is actually granted by the Immigration Board, and the Immigration Board is in fact the full cabinet. And permanent residence cannot be delegated by the Immigration Board to the Immigration Minister. So here you have the law giving the minister the power to grant citizenship, but the Immigration Board has to grant permanent residence.
So, in practicality then, cabinet grants citizenship and permanent residency.
And permanent residence, yeah.
Okay, so let's take, for example, Mr. Saul Kersner.
Right.
What does he have?
I don't know what status he has. No, I don't know what status he has, and I wouldn't want
But
to
if he wanted Bahamian citizenship,
Right.
he would apply,
Right.
and would he have to renounce the South African citizenship?
He would, yes.
If he gets it.
If he gets it, yes.
How do you determine if he should get it?
Well, the first thing is that you have to read the Bahamas Nationality Act or the Constitution and see if the applicant, I'm going to take his name out of it, but see if the applicant meets any of those criteria.
Which is a friend of the country, someone who knows the country.
No. The law, what the law says. The law says if you're a spouse of a Bahamian, if you were born to non-Bahamian parents, those kinds of things. If you had belongers status before 1973, if you were registered under the 1948 British Nationality Act at Government House, those sorts of things. So that's what the Constitution says. Secondly, if you go to the Nationality Act, the Nationality Act essentially says you have to have lived in the Bahamas for 10 years before you can apply for citizenship, and at least the year before the application you have to be in actual residence of the Bahamas. So once he meets that criteria, then the next thing is the more informal attributes. Does he know Bahamian history? And in some cases you're actually given an exam the words of the national anthem? What are the some of us, when we're discussing this matter around the tables, we wonder ourselves if we took the exam whether we'd be able to pass it. But of course, we're citizens at birth, so it doesn't arise for us. And you've got to get a passing grade in that exam, which and demonstrate your knowledge of the country, understanding of its history, its symbols, so on and so forth. A recommendation is then an interview is done. A recommendation is then made, a brief is prepared by the Department of Immigration saying whether or not they recommend to the Cabinet that the citizenship be granted. The Minister has to sign off on the recommendation, and then that's sent to the Cabinet, and the Cabinet gets it on its agenda. We try to do it every Tuesday at 3 o'clock, and then we adjudicate on the matters.
Good morning, Mr. Miller. Please ask Minister Mitchell why can't a picture of the applicant for citizenship be shown to the public when there is a notice put in the newspaper for the public's opinion if there is an objection to the application? Only Immigration Department knows what they look like. So can the public give an honest opinion?
I've heard that discussion. I don't myself have any objection to it. And what you'd have to do now, of course, is you'd have to amend the regulations to provide for that. But at the moment, the regulations do not provide for that. And so it'll be interesting to see, with this question having been put to the public, what the feedback is from it.
Meaning if someone is applying for citizenship, a photograph is published,
because right now all
along with the
is
information.
the name and the address, yeah. And you're given 28 days to object, I think, or to say whether you agree or disagree.
Someone wants to know what you are doing about the illegal immigrants of Haitian descent in Eleuthera. Man, it's almost more of them than us, Darold.
We've had 2 exercises in Eleuthera over the last year, and we had some successful prosecutions at the Cove, the hotel there. We interdicted 19 people.
But see, should the man who owned the Cove be charged?
Yes.
So what you doing?
Well, that's a different issue.
You give him a buy because he's investing so much money and employing so much Bahamians? He gets to go free?
I think the best way to put it is that there are, practical considerations that you have to take into account. And so if someone says they're going to shut a place down and put people out of work, you think to yourself, on balance, what do you do?
Someone wants to know, when will immigration officers get their promotions?
The work has been done on it. I think we're simply awaiting the sign-off of the Public Service Commission. I can't put a timing on it, but left to me, it would have been done last week.
Okay. Let us move to, we're going to come back to immigration if time allows, and I think it will. But let us move to the travelings, the diplomatic shuttlings that you have been doing. Is it paying off? You were visiting the emerging superpowers of the world. The United Arab Emirates. You're in the Dubais and the Qatars and the rest of them.
Well, last year, just about this time, I announced that I thought it would take a year to get all of this worked out, all the things, this outreach. And it's based on this fact, or my belief, that all of the countries in this region are suffering from what I call a capital deficit. We have high debts, very little scope to borrow, and very little and our economic growth since 2008 has been modest, and that's all of us, with the exception of Trinidad and possibly Guyana and Suriname, of all the CARICOM countries. So we're hunting around for new sources of capital. The traditional partners themselves, the Canadians and the Americans and the British, the EU, have for one reason or another not been available to provide the capital that we need. We have been successful in going to the market over the last year, but, borrowing is very unpopular because it's expensive and debt is already high. So the question is, what do you do? Now, you either have to go get donations from somebody, which is, your hand is out, say, give me some money, or you try and attract people to the country by way of investment. The Bahamas has chosen the latter. And what we tried to do is to utilize the invitations which these people have extended to us to come to their countries for one way or another, one reason or another, and while we're there to convert the visit into an opportunity to attract people to this country, for saying this is a well-regulated jurisdiction for high net worth individuals, and they have these substantial sovereign wealth funds that might be interested in various investments. And so that's what we've been doing. 3 countries we identified: Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and United Arab Emirates. The year has run out, have not been able to do Saudi Arabia, but substantial visits have taken place to UAE and to Qatar, and it looks as if there is interest in what is going on here. We had a good meeting with the Qatar Investment Authority last week explaining all the projects. They had an ambassador down here over the last year looking at projects in Grand Bahama. They promised that they're going to send a team down to look at the possible opportunities. Similarly, the UAE has had their foreign minister came and paid a visit, stayed over at Paradise Island, brought a party of 25, and they've been looking around. It's going to take a while, but we've agreed on diplomatic relations. We've agreed on a number of follow-up pacts in order to get all of this, including investment protection, double taxation, visa waiver agreements, and a general cooperation agreement and an air services agreement. So get all those things in place. Now, what our tourism people are also interested in, of course, is a relationship with Emirates Airlines, which is about the top airline in the world these days. They're starting, they just bought 100 or so new aircraft. They're expanding, and they're going to be doing a route Dubai to Mexico City. And the question is, they need a transit stop somewhere, and we're trying to think whether or not Nassau would be an ideal spot for this, particularly given the investment in our airport, the new hotel that's come up that's going to need more bodies to fill. So that's the background to the work, and it looks like it's bearing some fruit. It's gonna be some time yet before it actually comes to fruition, but it looks quite positive.
Who has the most money? The United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, or the Chinese?
I would say the Chinese by far. I mean, that's the second largest economy in the world, but there's a lot of surplus capital. These sovereign wealth funds are in the hundreds of billions of dollars, hundreds of billions. I mean,
you're talking about United Arab Emirates now,
and Qatar and Kuwait and Saudi Arabia. I mean, they're just billions and billions and billions of dollars that what their idea is. They know at some point the oil is going to run out. And what they're trying to do is to create funds and investments that when the oil runs out, they'll be able to maintain their level of wealth.
So what good news you bring us?
Well, the good news is that we're still working on it, and that it looks quite positive. They are interested in projects here.
What kind of project? Give me a little.
Well, in Grand Bahama, we were talking about the GIN project, which has been on the market for some time. Mm-hmm. That's, I think, the note on that is about $800 million. And so the question is someone interested in investing in that?
United Arab Emirates interested, or Kuwait?
They're both interested. Everybody's come and said, we're interested, want to have a look. So that's what's happening.
Mm-hmm. Malaysia has a lot of money too.
Yes, but you can't. I can't remember get this expression, but you can't reach beyond yourself. Already there's a level of discomfort in the country about all of this, because it seems.
You mean about the Genting Group?
No, Genting is already there in Bimini.
Right.
But I'm saying in terms of the foreign affairs outreach, that you have to deal with what you can deal with. You can't stretch yourself beyond. Ganting is a private sector initiative. This is what we're doing is a government-to-government initiative. That's a different issue. And, you know, Foreign Affairs is a small agency, and you really have to, as you move along, you have to ensure that you're matched up with what you can do and not go beyond what you can and do more than you can do.
Who's interested in West End? You say all of them are.
We have put proposals to all of them. So people.
Who's likely to bite quickest?
I can't say that.
But I'm asking that because Grand Bahama needs some hope.
There's no question, and there's work being done in Grand Bahama, and there's been some improvement in Grand Bahama over the last year.
But if you can get that GIN project,
no question.
that'll be the savior for Grand Bahama.
It would. And you know, the Dr. Darold is also working on a private partnership for a new hospital there. You know, Xanadu is on the market to be able to find a buyer for Xanadu. And then, of course, you've got Sunwing and the work it's doing there now.
But those are drops in the bucket compared to the GIN.
Yes, I mean, I can't say they're drops in the bucket, but again, would be, if we could get it going again, would be significant.
What about the philosophical differences we have with these countries? Because they are Arab countries.
Yes.
They are Muslim countries.
Yes.
They are terrorist countries.
No. Yes to the first two. No to the last one.
And the terrorists there. Al-Qaeda?
No. The countries we chose because of their relationship with the United States. And in deciding upon this, there were discussions with all of our traditional trading partners, the British, the EU, the Americans, the Canadians. And there are no objections there. In fact, what's happening now in Qatar is that U.S. pre-clearance is actually being put in the airport in Doha. In Abu Dhabi, in UAE. U.S. pre-clearance is being put in Abu Dhabi, so that Etihad, which is the national airline of UAE, will soon be providing pre-clearance, just as it does in Nassau, for flights to the United States. So there's none of that. I mean, we chose this very carefully, and the alliances are quite sound.
But terrorists operate in those countries.
Well,
you're not concerned.
But there was terrorism in the United States. I mean,
but that's a different kind of terrorism. What do you mean?
No, what I'm saying
domestic terrorism in the United States?
No, I'm saying that there's unlawful activity wherever you go. What you can do, the best you can do, is to try and choose countries that are close to your allies and that have a stellar reputation for taking care of security concerns. And both those countries are at the top of the list with that. Qatar is the country that has the highest per capita income in the world today. And the interesting thing from a point of immigration is there are only 250,000 citizens of Qatar, but 1.75 million people live in the country, so they're outnumbered by expatriates who work there.
Expatriates from, I guess, around the world.
Mainly Indians and from the Far East. Similarly, you have in UAE, the population is outnumbered by expatriates. So, you know.
Anything else you want to say about foreign affairs? Have you sorted out the situation with the Cubans, where you had to deport some of the Cubans who were granted exile in Panama, and you didn't receive it in time, I think?
No, there's nothing really of any import. I think there was a...
Well, why did you deport them when you could have sent them to Panama?
No, let's go back on the facts of that. The facts are that when you deport someone, you deport them to their home country. And so they went home.
Yeah, but I'm saying, because Martinelli had sent me something that I forwarded to your permanent secretary to say that Panama, President Martinelli, was granting asylum to the Cubans who were being held at the detention center and causing a little ruckus. But you didn't send them to Panama. You sent them back to Cuba.
I don't know. There's some people who went to Panama. There's some people who went to Panama. I don't know what the specifics are of who went and who didn't go where, but I can assure you that everybody who went back to Cuba was lawfully sent back to Cuba. And, you don't send people to places where they can't go lawfully. So the law was followed in all these cases. Now,
but you had an option.
No,
you could have sent them to Cuba, or you could have sent them on to the third country.
No, I wouldn't admit to an option. They were sent where they were lawfully supposed to be sent. So those who went to Panama lawfully went to Panama, and those who went back to Cuba were lawfully sent back to Cuba. Now, what I know is a lot of propagandists in Miami are making a lot of noise about this and that and all the rest of it, but, my view of them, so.
Good morning, Mr. Miller. Through you to Mr. Mitchell, a child born in Florida 14 years ago to a Bahamian mother and a Jamaican father. What passport can they get, and can it be dual?
That, of course, would turn on the laws of Jamaica. But a child born in Florida to a Bahamian mother, I think American law, of course, is anyone who's born in the United States is a citizen of the United States. So if that is so, then they would get a U.S. citizenship.
But this seems to suggest there can be triple
yes, that's right.
status.
I'm going to say that. If the mother is single and Bahamian, then she passes on the citizenship to that child. And so if she has a Jamaican father, and I believe in Jamaica they have abolished the distinction between marriage and non-marriage, so it may be possible, again, for that child to apply for Jamaican citizenship as well.
So and this child could be
triple citizen.
Triple citizen.
Yes, right. That's possible. But I can only speak to the Bahamian citizenship. Because if the child is if the child's mother is married to the Jamaican, then she's not able to get Bahamian citizenship. She has to take the citizenship of her father.
Good morning, Mr. Miller. Good show as usual. Would you please be so kind as to ask the good honorable minister what is on the drawing board for immigration officers as it relates to amendments to the immigration laws and tools to fight illegal immigration? We can answer that when we come back from the break.
Okay, sure.
This is Darold Miller Live. We'll be back right after these messages. Welcome back to Darold Miller Live here on the ZNS radio and television networks. Today's show is also being brought to you by the Island Link. Island Link has been supporting the Long Island Regatta for many, many years, and this year is no exception. The Island Link going to Salt Pond, Long Island, leaving Wednesday, June 4th at 7 a.m., and it'll be returning to Nassau on the Whit Monday holiday. That's the long holiday weekend, Labor Day and Whit Monday. The Island Link is your link to the Long Island Regatta in Salt Pond. Here are the numbers to call. Make your reservations now. You can book with Mr. Sweeting at 477-6162. That's 477-6162 to book your seat on the Island Link, taking you to the Long Island Regatta Wednesday, June 4th, returning to Nassau on Whit Monday. That's Monday, June 9th. You can also, that's interesting.
I was wondering whether, because, normally I'm in Freeport for Labor Day, so which is going to be that Friday. So I march in the parade up there. I guess I've done that since the late 70s. But And I always liked the Long Island Regatta. And, you know, Levi Gibson, when he was alive, used to take me down there with him. So maybe I can make
yeah,
at least one day of
this
that.
is interesting. Captain Jed Monroe would love to have you.
Yeah.
You know, he's going to ask you some tough questions. He wants to know, he is concerned about what's going on in the country with respect to persons of other nationalities coming in and getting a larger share than the Bahamian. He is also particularly concerned about the widening gap between the white Bahamian and the black Bahamian.
Yeah. You know, it's a really vexing social problem. And, you know, I'm in the process of responding to some of the comments that Miles Monroe made about this issue of gambling. And one of the points he makes, which is, you know, I don't follow the logic of it, and I'm happy that the former Attorney General answered it, is this question of, because you grant or regularize web shops, that this is somehow going to be destabilizing because a small group of people are going to be controlling the web shop business. Well, first of all, that doesn't follow that it's going to be a small group of people. But I said to myself...
Meaning you're going to continue to grant licenses for web shops?
Well, I don't know what the regime is. I don't know. That's what I'm saying. So he can't make that pronouncement. That's the point I'm making, is you cannot make that pronouncement because you don't know what the regime is going to be. But then you ask the question, does he have a similar complaint when the supermarket business is monopolized by almost one or two people? Doesn't have that complaint with those people. That's okay. And you ask yourself, why the double standard? Why the double standard? And that's the issue. You know, I think these people have, through their own ingenuity, been able to build up a space in the market. All that needs to happen is it should be regularized. And I keep saying, you know, the mullahs are not in charge of the Bahamas. This is a secular state. We have Christian values, but people have choices to make. And if they want to choose to do that, then the state ought to regularize this. I think it would be very interesting, Darold, if you would read one of the latest editions of The Economist. There is a substantial set of articles on what's called shadow banking, which has grown up in Africa, in Europe, which is banking operating outside the regular banking system, because the regular banking system has become unable to meet the requirements of people who need to borrow and the flexibility to move money around.
Are you suggesting that is what the web shops are doing?
But that is what, no, what I'm suggesting is the public policy we were faced with is having regard to the legal decisions with regard to this sector. The banking sector forced the cash out of the banks. What was supposed to happen with this cash? What was supposed to happen with it? And then all you do is create larger and greater problems for the country. So the government was forced to act. The government must always act in the best interests of its people, you know. And there's no great moral question which is connected with gambling, none whatsoever. You know, this country conceded the issue of gambling way back, way back. So to make a moral argument, I think does not arise. I mean, that can be your opinion, and all the rest of it.
But you have spoken on this issue. You say it's great that Sebastian is doing what he's doing.
Brilliant guy, brilliant young man, and I don't see any reason why you should be, coming down on these people or denigrating them in any way. What I say is the sector has to be regularized, you know, and you know it's just fascinating to me the twists and turns that you say this business of what is it? Oh, I don't agree that if I don't agree with gambling, but if there is going to be something, it should be a national lottery. Well, you can't be half pregnant. You either agree with gambling or you don't. And if that's your moral position, then you got to stick by that. But the public policy position has to be firmly in favor of regularizing the sector. it's best for the Bahamian people, and that's the way the government
Is
proposes.
the public policy leaning toward the national lottery more so than the web shops? Is that what you're saying?
No, I can only speak to the minister responsible for gambling said that the sector is going to be regularized.
No, nothing about lottery.
I've heard no announcement about that, and so I'm only speaking to that. And I'm also only speaking to the general principle. I don't want us to get mixed up in this, not get mixed up. Let's be reasonable and let's be fair in our comments on these issues.
Someone is saying that the persons who are here illegally are costing us $1 billion a year.
I don't know where they get that figure.
I don't know where they get that from either. The budget is $2 billion. But let's say they're costing $300 million.
I don't know what it costs, but what I do know is you can talk about repatriation costs. The budget for that is $1.2 million, and we haven't exhausted the budget, so that's what the budget is for this year.
But the baby's in the hospital.
That's a larger issue. You see, and I think IOM is coming in here to do an additional study about this because, as I say, there's a lot of emotion which is tied up in this, and in this stage in my life, it's got to be evidence-based.
But there is evidence. Let's go to the hospital any day, Minister.
I know, but if people, the question is, people say it's illegal migrants. That's the question. Are they illegal migrants? You see, people say...
So then why don't you show your status before you get your baby? You're going to deliver the baby, but you just want to know what's your status before you deliver the baby.
Well, I'm saying these are larger questions which are much beyond my remit.
What do you mean you in charge of this?
No, in the sense that in two areas, your international obligations say that you're to provide health care and you're to provide education. The question of immigration status, that's a different matter.
You can provide it, but you know who you're providing it to.
Yes, but you know the argument. Let's move it out of this theater into the United States. The question is the arguments in the States about whether the police ought to be doing immigration business, whether the schools ought to be doing immigration business. Immigration is for immigration. That's the issue, and you shouldn't be putting that on doctors and nurses.
Someone said, the intelligence of this man is so powerful. But anyway, how many citizenships are granted per year?
We try to do, as I say, every week, and if we get through 20 a week, I think that's probably plenty.
How much?
20, if we get through
20 per week?
Yeah, perhaps.
52 weeks in the year?
Yeah.
52 times 20 is, you're giving out 1,000 citizenships per year?
I don't hold me to that figure, but that's I would say. I mean, we try to do it on the basis that you meet every week and try.
Is that high or low in your thinking?
I think it's neither here nor there. It's who's entitled to it.
Can we accommodate and sustain that?
Look. This is what I'm saying is, and perhaps you ought to have a public forum about this, right? The Constitutional Commission said that we ought to have a national discussion on citizenship because it's a really emotive and emotional topic. There are 350,000 of us.
Right.
The fact is we do not have all the people within our borders who can run and support a modern country and an expanding country. So immigration is always going to be a part of the package of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. The question is who comes in, the numbers, on what basis are they going to be allowed in. That's a
But this is citizenship we're talking now.
No, I understand that. And the issue, though, is that the Constitution and the laws of the Bahamas provide for people to apply for citizenship. So any authority, any national authority, has to act in response to applications. All you have to do is to go back to the law, to the Privy Council decision and the Attorney General and Ryan, and you see what the case is. If someone provides an application before you, you have to act as a quasi-judicial authority and make a decision. You can't not act.
Robert Farquharson, you know him.
I do.
The Director of Labor.
Right.
Says he is not going to issue a labor certificate in cases where there are Bahamians on his register qualified for the positions for which work permit are being sought.
Right.
But there seems to be a disconnect between labor and immigration.
No, there isn't, because well, I'm going to Immigration Board meeting right now. I leave in a couple of minutes, and Department of Labor's representative sits at the Immigration Board. So, and they have a say in what happens. And we won't grant work permits unless there is the labor certificate. So you got to have that. That's part of the application. So you've got to get by them first before you come to us. And this happens with whether you're an accountant, whether you're an engineer, whether you're an architect, you know, whether you are a gardener, handyman, live-in maid. They all have to have the labor certificates.
So the Immigration Department doesn't grant work permits in the absence of a labor certificate?
I can't say in all cases that it is not so, because there's some categories like owners' representatives that you don't require a labor certificate for, but almost every other one requires a labor certificate.
I know you have to leave shortly for that Immigration Board meeting, but let's see if we can deal with a couple of questions. Quickly, good morning, Mr. Miller. I would like to know if a child has his or her Bahamian birth certificate, father is a Bahamian, mother is a Jamaican, but is dead, why can't the child automatically get a Bahamian passport?
No, you have to apply for citizenship. There is a provision, if you're a minor, for the minister to grant citizenship to a minor under any circumstances, so that's possible.
Let me ask you, because passport and citizenship seem to be synonymous, but they are not.
No, but I mean, I understand what people are saying when they say when they say passport, they mean citizenship.
Okay, but
because you can't get the passport unless you.
There are persons with passports issued by the Commonwealth of the Bahamas who are not citizens, correct?
No, that's not correct. And if they are, then let me know who they are so we could go get it back. I think the only circumstance that might be is a diplomatic passport, but even those, I doubt it.
Can I get one of those, diplomatic passport?
Yes.
I do a lot of traveling.
There's a man named Harry Gladstone Christie. Speak to him.
Oh, you got to go to him, not you.
Well, no, the minister grants it, but, you know, unless the boss says so, I'm not doing that.
But you have granted some?
Yes, sure.
Does Miles Monroe have one?
No, he does not.
Has he applied for one?
Not that I'm aware of. I think he has a Bahamian passport.
Yeah, but he wants. I am informed that he may prefer a diplomatic passport.
Well, you know, there are rules on how these passports are granted and who they can be granted to. So
there's no beef between you and he over that.
Not that I'm aware. Okay. I mean, but
because you know how the street talk go. Now, Dr. Monroe is mad with you because you didn't grant him a diplomatic passport.
Yeah, right.
Huh?
Yeah.
That's the talk on the street.
I could shut him up, but a rare passport. Let me go down the road and get that passport.
Yeah.
Give him the passport. Give him man the passport, man. Be quiet after that. That was a good one. Yeah.
Good morning, Mr. Miller. This might be the last one we deal with.
That was a good one.
I'm a Jamaican-born citizen by naturalization.
Jamaican-born citizen.
I don't understand that. Yeah, I'm getting. I don't think that one is too confusing.
Yeah.
This one. Good morning, Mr. Miller. I would like for you to ask the minister why, after 1 year of being interviewed for the immigration job and accepted, they still have not called me for the class as yet. public service.
You know, this is a very interesting job. You know, he and I have the same heartache, and hopefully it'll be resolved within a few days.
Someone wants to know if you can use video conferencing to offset some of your travel costs.
I suppose you can, but video conferencing is quite expensive to organize, I can tell you. You know.
Mr. Mitchell, if you are a woman married to a Bahamian man and he is dead, can I apply for citizenship? I was married for 16 years.
No, I don't think so. Because there are some provisions that said but for his death have been. And I think that's one of the things we're trying to correct now, because I don't think so. But I stand to be corrected there.
Well, Minister, I know that you have to leave. Let's see if we can...
One more, but I got...
One more, and this is from Fine Threads in Eleuthera.
Yeah, I actually told them that they should cut a gate, because immigration's right across the back here.
That's easy for us to do.
I could just hop the fence and climb up the stairs.
And I believe, what's the name right here? Right here next to the fence where we park.
Right. I can just hop the wall. But now I have to, because
you have to
go all the way around on Hawkins Hill and so on.
Fine Threads wants to know, Darold, can you ask the minister about Flag Day?
Yeah.
And when you swear them in, should they be loyal?
Yeah,
I guess he's talking about Haitians.
They swear the all allegiances to Her Majesty the Queen.
So his point is, if you swear allegiance to Her Majesty the Queen, meaning to the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, should you be flying your Haitian flag?
Well, you know, it's a free country. I mean, come on. I mean, you know, and there's no threat. I mean, you know, there is absolutely no threat. There's no threat. This is the Bahamas. We own the Bahamas. They can't take over the Bahamas. Never happened in this lifetime. Never.
You can't say that.
No, it won't happen.
They breed babies like they're going on a style.
No, that's emotional talking.
No! The Bahamian woman, I don't know where you live, sir, the Bahamian woman has cut down from 5 children to 1 or 2.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, I'm saying this, right? The Bahamas, man. This is the Bahamas.
Yeah.
This is Bahamas. And everybody born here can be Bahamian. That's Bahamian. And we're going to make sure they are Bahamians.
No, you only say that, right? You say anybody born here can be Bahamian?
No, in a social sense. We're not talking about the legal sense, right? To make sure that people who live in this country are Bahamians. They could fly there. You know, that flag as much as they want. They have to be Bahamians.
The question is,
country.
If you have sworn allegiance to the Bahamas, should you fly a flag other than the Bahamian flag?
Let me give you another example. Because this matter of Haitians is just so emotional in this country, right? I had a classmate who went to school with me, you know, at St. Augustine's College. He's a butler, right? I sat down with this man who wanted to be a candidate for the Free National Movement. And he told me that he is Irish. That even though they've been in this country 7 generations, they have Irish ancestry, right? And every year they celebrate St. Patrick's Day in this country, every year. Nobody has a problem with it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So there's nothing wrong with celebrating your heritage, but you are Bahamian, and that's it. And no one going to take over this country, not with me at its head, or at the head of the Immigration Department.
Where does the name Mitchell get its origin?
I don't know. Mitchell is a Scottish name. Michel is a French name that's sometimes anglicized. You know, my grandfather came from San Salvador, so who knows? You know, migration has taken place in this country since 1804 from the Republic. So
is the president of Haiti, Matali, coming here soon?
I don't think so.
There's supposed to be something going on
the 29th of May. There's a meeting.
But that's not with him?
No, it's with the technical team. Yeah.
Minister, thank you very, very much. It's always a pleasure to have you.
Red
Fox Hill?
Yeah. Doing.
You were in there this morning at Sunderland School.
We're in the process of designing the monument for those people who were killed on the 27th of December. And so the architect met with the families, and it was a very moving and emotional time. And I hope that's all settled soon. So we're coming along. Unemployment is a huge problem. Trying to help resolve that. And I'm grateful for the support the people give me there.
They love you.
And I love them. Yeah.
You go to the funerals. I don't know how you find time to do it.
Yeah.
You're up at 5:30 in the morning. You called me at 6:30.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. It's my job. I love the job, and I'm gonna fight to keep it. And red passport, eh?
All right. Thank you very much.
I remember that.
This is Down the Live. We'll be back right after the break.